Thank you so much for having us today. And thank you, everybody, for jumping on this afternoon. I know we're all busy, but I have a feeling the information that we're going to be sharing with you today is going to be of value, and hopefully you're going to be able to take it back and incorporate some of this information into your businesses to help you do an even better job at what you do. So I'm Christy Vogel. I am the CEO and founder of Marketing Direction, outsourced marketing experts. And basically what we do is we function as our client's outsourced marketing department. You don't always need a full-time CMO, director of marketing, and that kind of thing, but you need the level of expertise for when you are using those individuals, that you need someone that's very experienced and that you're not having to babysit or really have to tell them how to do what they're doing. You want a team that's going to be able to drive it for you. So that's what we do for our clients. Our subject matter expert in the way of customer journey mapping is Michelle Hoagland, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Michelle, so take it from here.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you, Vicki, for having us and the audience for joining us today. Like Christy said, I know it's a busy day for everyone, busy week. So Michelle Hoagland, subject matter expert in the customer journey map component. And Christy, how many of these have we done already? So it's kind of exciting for us to be able to present to our audience some of the tips and tricks on, first and foremost, really explaining what the customer journey map is, and how it would benefit these businesses, especially with Engagify and your clients. So hopefully we get some good nuggets out of this. And with that, I'll kick it over to Christy if you want to just let our audience know kind of what we're looking at in the outline throughout the process, and then we'll get right into it.
Absolutely. And it is funny to mention, because when we talk about customer journey mapping, people will say, oh, yeah, customer journey mapping. And then they'll pause and say, what exactly is that? I think I might know, but why don't you tell us about it? And then we'll figure out if we actually know what that is. So we're probably, some of you are thinking that right now. I think I know what it is, but I'm not quite sure. So pretty soon you're going to know exactly what it is. So we're going to be talking about understanding that customer experience, which in the industry, that no matter what industry you're in, the customer experience is what's going to dictate whether or not you're going to win or lose as far as keeping your customers and growing. The need for customer journey mapping, does everybody really need a customer journey map, or is it overkill in some cases? What does that customer journey map actually look like? It is not the state of Florida, so that's sorry to disappoint you. The journey mapping framework, we're going to go through all of that information. And then the key elements of a customer journey map. So depending on who's putting this together for you, it might look a little bit different, but there are typical elements that you should see with any complete customer journey map. So we're going to talk a little bit about those, the different types of customer journey maps, as well as the steps to being able to build out that journey map. It's a very logistical process, and so we're going to share a little bit of that with you today. Also, how to improve the customer journey. So if there's anyone on this call today that says, we've nailed it and we got the most perfect customer journey out there, I got news for you. There's always room for improvement. And I have a feeling everybody on this call kind of knows that. So, but we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Also, the benefits of customer journey mapping. I've already talked about keeping those customers for a longer period of time, which is going to reduce your costs, because the cost of keeping that customer is definitely a lot less than bringing on new customers. So if you go through all of the hassle and expense and time of bringing them in, let's keep them, for crying out loud. Let's not let them walk out the door never to return again. We're going to talk about buyer personas, the buyer's journey, as well as show you some actual customer journey map examples, and I believe there's a template in there as well. So like I said, you're going to walk away from this knowing a heck of a lot more after this about journey mapping than you do know now. So so let's move on. Take it away, Miss Michelle.
All right. Well, thank you, Christy. So let's first start with understanding really your consumer's experience. We want to ask those on the call just a very, very quick exercise as we read through these stages. Write down the first thing top of mind that you think of within your business sector and your consumers and your day-to-day process right now. What touch points are you currently tapping into? So write down really here, specify what these outcomes are for the consumer. What, whether it's email marketing, do they land on your website? What are the touch points that you're currently using in this moment in time? And then what actions are those consumers, whether they're on the prospect stage or they're actually clients at the moment, what actions are they taking in that discovery component of your journey? What are their motivations? So right here, write down a couple things that you feel motivates your consumer to take that action that we just referred to. What type of questions might they be asking along the way? And then current pain points that your customers reach, the reason why your consumers reach out to you to begin with. What are those pain points? So we'll come back to that. If you want to go ahead and take a couple minutes to write them down as we go into the next step, and then we'll loop back around towards the later presentation here to see how you did with your initial assessment of your very, very 30,000 level view of your customer journey.
Hey, Michelle, I'm going to take just a second too to remind everybody that in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a Q&A box. So if there are any questions along the way, feel free to type those in and we will answer them as we can. If we run out of time for answering, we'll follow up with an email to you on that. And then depending on what time we wrap up at the end of this, we'll take additional Q&A. So if a question pops up that you hadn't thought about, but we're at the end of the presentation, either put it in the chat and we'll email you the answer, or we'll answer it in real time on this presentation.
Okay. So one of the questions, Christy, that is asked is, why do financial institutions and really any business, right? Why do they need a customer journey? Again, you and I have done plenty of these, and every single time is a different discovery. It's a different outcome that we get because it's different people. We're talking about human behavior. But most importantly, what are the key outcomes that any institution wants to get out of a customer journey map? Now, this is a shift in perspective from the inside out to the outside in. What does that mean? Think of your day-to-day. We work in the marketing department or the sales department or accounting. We all have different tasks on a daily basis, and we're thinking typically with that hat on. If we take that hat on and we think, what is our own experience as consumers? Say if you're going to the department store and you're looking for something. Now that is an outside in approach because we're really thinking of that end user, and the end user is always our consumer and our client. So customer journey really sheds light on that real human experience that organizations really, because of the day-to-day whirlwind, we may forget about it. Having a clear customer journey map that everyone can champion behind produces that type of consistency within the business itself. And it also allows for assigning ownership of those key touch points to the internal departments. The marketing touch points are different than the customer experience touch points or sales touch points. So collaboratively, you will build with different departments in your organization what the whole holistic customer journey looks like. And then you're going to gain clarity around that alignment for the departments. It also allows you to view your business differently by targeting specific consumers or customers, members, whatever word, depending on your business. So then that way you can focus specifically on those personas. And then really break down any lack of communication, any silos that you might be experiencing in certain organizations, and really create that one shared organization-wide vision. Ultimately, again, what is the goal of any business is to provide satisfied customers. So once we do all these, exercises, the key outcomes are really just that, to provide happy customers. So you can keep a 90.5 NPS score.
There you go. Michelle, it's interesting because usually when we get started with a client in this process, they're always shocked to hear that this is a complete organizational transformation. So every department has a part in this shift in thinking, and it's not just customer service. It's not just the marketing department, but it is every single individual within the company that is going to be a part of this. And that just, that just makes it bigger than, more than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely.
Which gives a lot of traction. So let's take a look, Michelle, at, what does this journey map look like? It's not the state of Florida, so what does it look like?
I love that. I love that. So again, let's stick to the high level components of it. Towards the rest of the presentation, we'll get down into breaking down these individuals' key buckets here. But really the components are, again, personas. You're going to hear us use that word throughout the presentation here. And it's important because not every customer is created equal. If they raise their hand because they saw an ad of service A, that doesn't mean that, Mrs. Smith down the line saw a similar ad, but she raised her hand for a completely different reason. So that's why it's important to segment these cohorts based off your personas. So create an example based off conversations, part of the customer journey research and building phase is really to have these conversations with the individual business unit leaders, right? So create an example of what that ideal customer looks like. And this could be data points within demographics, psychographics, where do they live, what are their ages, what is the affinity category, what are their values, what are they interested in. All these things will ultimately translate into keywords, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So then that way we can really target that persona, especially if you are putting paid advertising behind your initiatives, or create unique elements and assets around that persona during that customer journey stage. This will help us understand what their desired outcomes are. So again, every different persona has a different desired outcome. So it helps us understand what that consumer actually wants, so we can respond in our marketing efforts at that moment in time with the appropriate message and the appropriate tool or vehicle that we're using. This also helps us understand their frustrations and their pain points. And then we go down to the steps. What are the steps that they actually need to take from the moment whether they became a lead to the moment you close them in that funnel stage? So think about how you see that entire process now. And then that's something that, marketing direction, Engage Fi can support you with on building your journey map and really get granular on those levels. And then identify those touch points. Again, it's a different journey from a digital perspective to an in-person perspective, different touch points that we're talking about. And then address them, right? To iterate and change depending on that human behavior that we're really trying to understand to provide that excellent service approach to it. And then those moments of truth. These are those special kind of moments, right? What is going to make that consumer want to come back and do business with you? It's not a matter of, okay, you know what, we got this customer journey, like Christy said, I'm not going to learn anything from this. Oh, no, you are, because as soon as you continue to put in more information, you're going to understand that, again, those moments of truth are really what make or break that part of the funnel.
Michelle, I just wanted to mention, with the touch points, you talked about going back and reanalyzing them every so often. So with different changes that are going on within the economy, with the industry, well, guys, we just went through a global pandemic. And so what those touch points were before the pandemic, what they were during the pandemic, and what they look like after the pandemic. And I am saying after, because as far as I'm concerned, we're done with that. But anyway, those all look totally different. And if you don't take the time to go back and look at your messaging and the touch points and the way that you're speaking to your prospects and your clients, then you're going to absolutely lose people. So, for example, in the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, everybody was in fear. Everybody was in fear, but especially if you were a business owner and you didn't know if your lights were going to be on in the next 6 weeks, or if you're legally allowed to have your lights on in the next 6 weeks. The last thing you were thinking about was buying software or bringing on another vendor to help you with X, Y, and Z. And if you're that vendor that's trying to sell them the same services that you were trying to sell them before the pandemic, I guarantee the next time they are thinking about using your services, you're off their list, because all you were thinking about was selling to them as opposed to, how's it going? What can we do? Our other clients are doing X, Y, and Z in order to keep their employees engaged during this, during this difficult time. Give them something of value. Don't try to sell them something that they have absolutely no interest in. So it's really important to take a look at that very often, just to make sure that you're saying the right things based on how things on the exterior have changed.
Absolutely, Christy. Great point, and great segue into the first pillar of this, which is mapping. You made a great point in saying understanding and actually asking the questions. If we're a vendor and someone comes to us and say, hey, I need a customer journey map. Okay, well, now we start asking the questions, right? What are you currently experiencing? What are you currently providing to your members? Can we actually have a conversation with maybe your top two clients, and maybe those that might not be so satisfied, because we want to get a 360 view of your business. So that is part of that mapping component, and really speaking to those key stakeholders, whether they are internal clients or external clients, right? Two different perspectives, two different lenses that we're looking at. So in order for us to start building a map, right now we're just working on the framework in this slide. In order for us to actually build that map, we need to understand what's currently happening in your environment. Then, based off those conversations, get down into the nitty-gritty component of it, gather that data offline and online. So for example, how is your website currently performing? Are you using the right keywords to attract audiences to your website? We'll go down on the analyze component here. So the different views that we're getting from all the data that we're collecting, and it is an enormous amount of data, right, Christy? So if we have a list of, say 3,000 keywords that we've pulled for your specific business sector, maybe part of that competitive analysis that we're doing, how do we shorten and synthesize that information where it actually makes sense so you can apply it? We can have a whole bunch of information, but if we don't know how to interpret it, then it's irrelevant. That's when it goes to the present component. How do we synthesize? How do we use that dashboard and layer the sections of your customer journey map, so then that way you can get the buy-in from key stakeholders within your organization? Because most importantly, as we talked about in the beginning of the presentation here, you really have to have a holistic approach in view from the entire organization, so you can produce satisfied customers. Okay, so here's an example, just visually, how a journey map actually looks like after we did all the research, all the interviews. There's really three main components in breakdown of the journey map. So zone A, we call it the lens. This provides you again, a 30,000 level view of who your persona is and what the scenario is. So the who and the what. Zone B, this is the experience based off, again, the data that we've collected. So it's really scientifically driven versus opinion driven. So when we ask for sales calls or any day-to-day activity that different sections of the business interact with a consumer or a client, it's important because now we're able to actually plot these on the map. So the experience, what are they feeling? What actions are they taking? What are they thinking? Whether it's the moment they land on your website, all the way through that journey stages, through consideration, what's going to actually make them say yes. And then zone C gives you the insights. Again, this is the results where our opportunities are to improve on that journey map. So we recommend possibly every quarter going back to your original journey map and see how you can continue to improve and refine that process. Market conditions can absolutely change you, just like Christy mentioned, pandemic being an example. And then what are these opportunities that we can focus on going forward so we can be really agile when it comes to our journey map, but also very tactical in what we're actually doing. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, so let's take a look at some of those different types of customer journey maps, because not one type fits every need. So let's take a look at some different options for those.
Yes, yes. And I will just go back and piggyback off your pandemic example, Christy, because that is just a perfect example. Pre, during, and post. Different. So we have essentially 3 types of journey mapping. We'll start with your current state mapping. This really helps us understand what your consumers are interacting with your brand at this moment in time, right now. And then we'll use that to identify those weak points, the pain points. Where are they coming from? How do they actually become customers? Is it a phone call that they got? Did they land on your website? Was it a text message that you sent to them? So essentially, what are you doing now that we can improve on? And then you go into your future state mapping. And this is really where we spend the majority of the time because A, we understand what you're doing now. We might be able to provide some really short-term opportunities. And then we go into the long-term component. Instead of right now, what can we do better tomorrow? And this future state mapping is really, again, where we're going to spend more of our time having more interviews with your key stakeholders, possibly more of your consumers, and then really starting to identify that starting point to the end point, and then plan specific messaging for those personas. So this is a lot more detailed than your current state mapping. Just think about it, short-term, quick results that we can gain versus future where it's longer term and more in-depth information. And then the shorter one on the last side is the day in the life. So think of this as a micro journey map for departments. So if we're talking about the sales department, we found maybe 1 or 2 things that they can improve on when it comes to the sales process. This is the type of journey map that you would use, again, to get short, quick results and identify what is the one goal that you want to identify with the sales team, what are the pain points, and how long is it actually going to take for us to execute on. And this is to get even more granular than the middle section of the type of future state mapping.
So Michelle, besides picking up the phone and calling you and saying, Michelle, help me, what are those steps in building this amazing journey map?
Great. So again, we'll bullet point these for you. Planning. And it all starts with your planning. Get your entire team, identify those key stakeholders. What is the scope? Not every customer journey map is created equal. You might know what your one pain point is, and that's the only thing that you want to focus on. Or if you want to do a more deep dive in the broader terms, identify that planning and that scope. Why is it important? Because now you're setting the tone from the very beginning, especially with your key stakeholders. We tend to overtalk sometimes. We tend to give many opinions. But if we understand what the actual goal is, that's the focus that we'll go down to. Gather all that data that we mentioned, whether it's via interviews, whether it's online activity, collect any information around what you're currently doing right now, and then start mapping that out. Does it actually make sense to continue to have, outbound calling versus inbound calling? And if so, how can we automate some of those processes? So then that way it frees up time for your team to focus really on what matters, and that is your client. So we'll start mapping in those data points that we gathered. Then take a step back, identify and analyze those key findings. And again, do they convert into actionable insights? Most importantly, what do we want? Just like a great, compelling call to action. We want them to call, right, Christy? Like you said, want to call you. So what is the actionable insights that we can get from compiling all this different information, and what can we take in consideration, and what can we remove? Because again, you will have an enormous amount of information and data to go by, but unless we put it into a map that makes sense, we know what areas you might find that are redundant that you currently do in your processes currently. That leads us to investigating those issues and opportunities. So again, deep drills every quarter, reanalyze, and then really present your findings. Because again, your entire team has to be a champion around this in order for this to work, because everyone plays a role. And that's really what's going to help us to create that roadmap, more specifically the roadmap for change, and establish that new process.
So Michelle, before we talk about improving that customer journey, we've got people on today that have primarily online businesses, and we have people that have hybrid, and then we have primarily brick and mortar businesses. So would the approach to the customer journey map be any different for those different types of businesses?
The touch points will be different. I think the approach and this framework would be similar. However, we need to think about is, you can get someone's attention on your phone. They saw your ad, 5 to 7 seconds, they took action, versus them getting in a car, driving, going into your store. It's a much longer process than what it would be digitally. So yes, we need to think about those steps differently, so then that way we can identify the appropriate touch points at that moment in time.
All right, makes sense. So how do we improve this journey?
Okay, so say you already have one. If you're listening, tell me how to make it better. Well, let's go back to the pain points. Identify, and this is where we are making the recommendation that every quarter revisit your current customer journey map. See if it's still working. Rank those pain points, because the whole objective is to improve that process. So if after 3 or 6 months you are taking the steps to follow, your customer journey, and your prospects are taking the desired steps, and they are receiving that desired outcome, then your journey map's going to look different than it was 6 months ago. So some of those pain points might no longer exist, but you might find that new pain points arise during that process. So that's why it's important to keep that dialogue open. Start early, finish later. This really just is, again, reiterating whether depending you go with the short-term results or in the future state journey mapping. What is that impact that you're creating, and how can you immediately take action on it? Raise the bar. Just because things are going great still doesn't make you a differentiator in the marketplace. You might have a very stable business. We like to say, what can we do better? So this is really the opportunity to look inward and raise the bar and see how can we exceed our customers' expectations. We might meet them very well, but how can we wow them? And this is where you raise the bar. And then again, if you reflect on your customer journey, remove those unnecessary steps. We might find that a prospect might have to give you 2 calls in order to get a response, where you can just implement a chatbot on your website, for example, with a knowledge base, and then I can go in and then, just do my click, click, click. I got the answer that I needed in 2 minutes versus 2 phone calls and 45 minutes of conversation. So improve your process, remove unnecessary steps. It's another way to improve your customer journey.
So are there really any kind of benefits to doing all this stuff, Michelle? I mean, really?
I know. It seems like a lot.
I can't think of one.
Visibility, Christy, right? You're getting a more intimate behind the scenes, not only in your buyer persona, but also how it impacts your operations. So at the beginning, Christy, we mentioned it really takes every single leader in your organization to get behind this. Every single person that has the opportunity for a touch point with that customer or prospect. Even on the accounting side, is that accounting process effective, or is it a nightmare for someone to just want to give you their money and pay you? So really understanding those components is another benefit for any business. Get your entire organization on the same page really is the ultimate key here. Those that want to maintain a high NPS score, if you go on Indeed, if you're on the growth stage and you are in the recruiting mode, this also empowers not only your current employees to think differently as to how can we differentiate ourselves in the market, but also those prospects that might be looking to join in your team. It really sets you apart than your competitor. And this one's my favorite, agility. 2005, I think it was, don't quote me on the year. It was the year of the Super Bowl that they had a blackout. Oreos responded within seconds with a paid ad that said, you can still dunk in the dark. So that level of agility for any business just translates to essentially being able to provide a solution when your competitors might be scrambling to find, how do we adapt in this new environment with the pandemic? You've already had your customer journey, you have your plan A, plan B, plan C, and then you're able to quickly respond to those market conditions. Or if
how do we send everybody listening right now a package of Oreos? That's my question. I'll get back to you on that.
Drop your address on the comments. Our thank you to you will be a sleeve of Oreo cookies. But yeah, so then that responds to that demand. You know, as your business is growing, you have these systems, these processes in place. The next expectation is the more consumer data you're receiving, how do we respond to the demand and expectation for that customer? And really excellence, right? Those moments of delights, what's going to make that consumer want to come back and continue to do business with you, because you are developing that trust with them. You are developing that voice of authority in your business sector. So there are some real benefits for organizations to implement customer journey mapping in their strategy.
All right, I'm really interested in taking a look at an example of one of these things.
Okay, so at the beginning of the call, we asked you guys to write down some components of it. These templates will be provided to you downloadable. So those pain points that we talked to you about, think about what the current buying decisions are for your consumers right now. What are the demographics? Do they follow certain age ranges? Are they male? Are they female? What is a professional role? What are they interested in? Motivations and challenges. And again, this is an example of just quickly doing bullet point lists of what you're seeing in your business right now. Try to keep opinion-based components out of it and more data-driven. So maybe take a look at the last 6 months of your customer experience. So, well, how many surveys are you sending out? And start plugging these in. Then you go into to identifying those opportunities. What is the content that you need to develop? And then add yourself some additional notes, which will be plugged in on that lower section of the journey map that we showed you, which is Zone C. And note that depending on which state of that journey, depending on which step of the journey map that we're talking about as a consumer, am I only looking for awareness for the specific service that I'm looking for? Am I now engaging? Am I now evaluating? Have I made a purchase? And how are you going to treat me as a client post-purchase? The worst thing is to say, hey, I got your money, and then I never hear from you again. Or I don't care how you're feeling about that. So again, plug those in, very high level, and you'll get to this component, which is what a customer journey map can look like. Start plugging them in, and this gives you really from beginning to end of what you know what your customer is experiencing. At what point do we need to say, hey, you know what do we need to serve them on the nurture stage? If my client is engaging with the newsletters that we're sending on a monthly basis only when it comes to this service, then now you can start segmenting your lists and then serve them proper messaging, because that's what your clients and your prospects are asking you for. So really, ultimately, Christy, is our clients and our prospects tell us what they're looking for and what they need. We just need to put these systems in place and understand them so we can listen to them without having to speak to 5,000 people in a day, because it's virtually impossible.
Well, and to your point about, yes, you're right. We're not talking to 5,000 people, but there's a lot of people that are involved that we are speaking to in order to combine all of this information. So, how long does it take from start to finish on average? I know it varies depending on the size of the organization, but how long on average does it take beginning to end to complete a customer journey map?
Great question. Great question. And yes, there's different variables, but let's look at those three pillars that we showed you. Is it your current state map? That really shouldn't take you more than a couple weeks. And that is talking to possibly 7 people within the organization, including maybe 1 or 2 customers. Start plugging in all that data, synthesize it, plug it into your journey map. Quite frankly, you can even get it done in 2 days, right? Again, if your objective is to solve this one problem and one problem only, and you know that you have 5 different touch points, what do we need to implement on that current customer journey map to just make that better within that specific one? And some customer journeys are in more depth depending on the size of your business and how many personas you've identified. Because again, not every persona is different. So if you might have 7 different personas, guess what? That likely is 7 different customer journey maps. So that might be a 30 to 45 day process. But you know, the key is to just get started, and you'll see. And the more conversations that you have, whether it takes you 2 days or 2 weeks, you'll see that this conversation never ends, because we always want to continually improve for our customers. So again, every quarter, refine your process. And, you know, whether it took you 30 to 45 days to get in depth, really identifying what you need to change in your process. You might need to find that you need a whole new website because your competitors are doing these 5 things great and you don't have any of them on your website. So the customer journey map also provides a roadmap for how long it's going to take, depending on which assets need to be created, which implementations need to be developed, specific landing pages and campaigns, so that it always, you know, continues to segment down and hone in on not only your prospect, but the service that you're trying to provide to your customers. So it is a wide range, but I'm the big believer that I would say on average, if you spend 3 to 4 weeks on your customer journey map, you're golden. You took the time.
Excellent. So I've got a question here it's a very good question. So we come in and help them with their customer journey map, or they do it themselves, and they come up with all of these realizations as to, prime example, you might have to make some changes to the website or the content or in different areas of, let's say, marketing collateral. So who does that? Who helps them? Is that something that marketing direction also helps with, or are they pretty much on their own to figure it out themselves?
No, I mean, I think the worst part is having that feeling like, I'm so excited, I'm ready to make the changes that I need, but I don't have a team to actually do this. You know, that's where marketing direction comes in. Like you said, we provide the expertise in what we do for the areas that you might need support and help with. On the other hand, you might have an existing marketing team that you work that whether it's in-house or another agency that you work with. We play well with others, and again, it's ultimately leveraging our experience to help you as a customer and a client become better at providing that value to your clients. Expertise come different. That's why I love marketing direction, because Chrissy, you've taken the time to identify those key roles that provide the maximum output for a client. So then that way they don't feel alone, and we do plan this out. So say we do a customer journey map for you, and we identify all those items that need to be developed, implemented, executed on. Do not worry. Hey, we built that roadmap for you. If you need the support for execution, marketing direction can provide that as well, or work with your existing team to fill in those voids and gaps where you might need it.
I love how he takes somebody's question and turn it into an ad for us. So you get an Oreo cookie for that one, Michelle. So another question, and I can almost hear the concern in the text that's being written, but the question comes back to, you and I spoke a couple of times about, you need to get your entire leadership team on board with this. The CEO, the CFO can't be alone in trying to incorporate this. This is a change for everyone. So how the heck do you get the leadership team involved with this? Not only involved with it, but bought into it, because everyone's busy. They've all got their own objectives. Is this something that you help get the leadership team, number one, educated on it? That, what is this? What's in it for me? Because let's face it, our leaders in our organizations are going to want to know, what's the value I'm going to get out of it for my particular department, for me to be able to take time away from something else and focus now on this. And I'm not even sure if it's something that's going to benefit me or not, but the CEO is saying, hey, we're going to do this. So shiny squirrel, another new project. Now I got to take time to do it. Do you help at all with getting the buy-in from the leadership team?
Yes, absolutely. And this has to be done at the beginning before you even start that customer journey process. And that comes again, whether we have a Zoom call, with the different C-suite and understand what their pain points are. Because again, a CFO views it as it's just another marketing expense, right? The CEO and even the COO in the operations, this is going to improve our customer satisfaction and increase our business revenue as a whole. So different people, different outcomes that they're looking for. So the quickest way to do it is schedule those maybe 1 to 1.5 hour interviews with each of those key stakeholders. The best approach is to get them all in one room and do a one-day workshop, and let's just spitball and collaborate, and feelings will fly in the air, but ultimately we'll get all the information that we need in order to start creating the process, even before we create the entire journey map, right? The presentation, and then come back to them, spend 1 hour and say, this is what we're thinking. This is what we found. And by the way, some of this is going to be very eye-opening, because the way you view it versus the way we view it is through a completely different lens. Once you get to that point, you find that these leaders essentially take a little step back, because it's now their interest is piqued. How is it actually going to improve my business unit? So then now we're not thinking about silos, we're thinking about as an organization as a whole. What is the ultimate goal? And then the third component of it is to come back once your customer journey is ready and actually present. And that would be another hour. So my question to all the leaders out there would be, does 3 hours of your time over a 2-week period, do you think if your productivity increases by even 5%, would you take those 3 hours out of your time to help your company grow?
That's a great way to look at it, because we're all too busy, but what a small investment for a huge return, really. Mm-hmm. Really. Absolutely. I've got another question here about customer types. How do you recommend that you break down those customer types? Is it by product line? Is it by service? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it'll be different types of exercises to get to your ideal persona, because customer types, we get all the information. Who is currently buying your service? Who is currently buying the product? Because service and product are two different things. And then where do we see the overlap? And then when we start getting those overlap points, like for example, hey, you know what? Male between the age of 35 and 45 are really responding to this specific product that we sell. And, females from 45 and 55 are really responding to this type of service that we're providing to them. So really it's a step-by-step process, and then synthesizing that information, having a matrix where you can see where those things overlap, including keywords, because think about it, if we're searching for something, new restaurant near me, what are the keywords and key phrases that we use ourselves in the way we search on the internet, and then get that entire list and see what your top rankings are. And then that's really how you start building those different customer types and ultimately creating your ideal persona. And then when you have all those data points, you can create paid advertising, for example, around it and plugging in those different points. So then that way you're maximizing your ad spend, you're targeting your regions by your ideal buyer persona. And that usually gives you a conversion rate that is way better than if you just say, hey, I'm going to do an ad and just spread it all over Tampa Bay or Florida.
All right, here's a question. I have a feeling it's from one of our credit union participants. So the question is, can journey mapping help ensure a more successful transformation to digital banking?
Ooh, that is a great question. Yes, the answer is yes. And there are many, many reasons, but most importantly is now you're getting that first party data that otherwise, if you would physically walk into a brick and mortar, physically walk into a bank or a credit union, you really don't know what they're thinking. But if that prospect is engaging with your content on the website, if they're opening your emails, if they're responding to SMS text messaging, then you're receiving all those first party data points where now you can create that messaging around it and improve your business as a whole. Because again, your prospects and your clients are telling you things, maybe not verbally, but really by their online behavior. So if you are planning from moving to a traditional face-to-face into the digital space, definitely you need a customer journey map, 100%. And then again, it'll make you more efficient as a business again, because you can start plugging in those touch points in areas where you otherwise would be able to do it on a one-to-one component, face-to-face component. Now there are hybrid approaches, Christy. You know, if your doors are still open, that doesn't mean that it's one or the other. Leverage both, and that really makes you a much stronger, business, especially with your competition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we've answered all of our questions. And Michelle, is there anything else that's just burning inside of you that you didn't get a chance to share that you feel that we need to share with our participants today?
Aside from now wanting some Oreo cookies?
Well,
no, really, just get started. That really is the most important thing. Whether you are a believer in what we presented today or not, it's irrelevant. You know your prospect, you know your client, you know your business better than we do. But just get started. That's what we said in the beginning of this presentation. Quick exercise. If it took you 5 minutes, great. Reflect on that tomorrow and see if you still feel the same way if you after this presentation, or if you would say, hey, if I implement just one email in our current process, would that make the consumer experience better? So that really is the burning thing. Just get started.
Just get started, one foot in front of the other. And if we can be of service in helping you get started, please reach out through Engage FI, reach out directly to Marketing Direction. You can contact us at marketingdirection.com. Also, if you feel that these slides are of value to you, like Michelle said, there's a template in there for you to go back and fill out at your convenience. Just go to the right side of your screen under the Marketing Direction information and click in there, and you'll be able to download a copy of this PowerPoint presentation. So you'll have all of that information at your fingertips. And what's better than getting Oreo cookies is that we're going to give you roughly 7.5 minutes back into your day, which with the team that's watching today, I have a feeling you might value that more than an Oreo. I could be wrong, but not more than an Oreo and a glass of milk. So that's hard to beat. But we want to thank everyone for attending and listening and giving us your time. Thank you to Engage FI for allowing us to be a part of their webinar series. And we wish everyone luck in all of their customer journeys, no matter what they look like. Just be on the lookout for always improving them and giving that customer the best experience they absolutely can receive so they come back again, again, and again. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. And hopefully we'll be seeing you again.